Hello everyone, this is Dana Straw. We decided to, instead of just doing a PowerPoint lecture, we decided to make a video for the fact that you could go back to the video and review things if you missed something or just needed that review. So this topic that we're covering will be Cornell notes, and I've just started with the quote, "One learns through the process of information by the brain. Words very, very seldom imprint themselves on the brain, but one's thinking does." The whole process of Cornell notes kind of has three main steps. One is just to record the information learned. The second is to revisit, and that kind of goes with this quote in that the student's going to work with the ideas, develop an understanding, and make sense of the information. Rather than just be passive, they will be active in the process. And the last part would be just processing the information. So going further with it as well, making sense of it, further asking those questions and talking about it. So this is the forgetting curve, and it's just kind of interesting in how information is processed with review or, again, one time and never talked about again, just kind of showing that forgetting curve. So on day one, our hope, sometimes our students come in with 0. And our hope from the day in class is they retain and understand 100%. We hope they do. Then on day 2, what's interesting is if the information isn't revisited, 50 to 80% could be lost. But if you do return to that information just for about 10 minutes, you're more likely to retain or go back to that 100%. And then after 7 days, a week, you can see here, you just need a little less time, but you'll still be able to retain that vast amount of information. So the Cornell notes is just another way, it's activities to get back to the information and to use it. So that's what we'll kind of talk about, is how do we use that information. So Cornell notes, each letter representing something that I will review. The first part is pretty simple: create, format, organize notes. And that is really just setting up the notes and the note-taking. Then after that is really active processing with those notes, reviewing, revise, figuring out the key ideas, questions, exchanging those ideas with other individuals in the class. And then the last thing is just note interacting, so linking the learning tool, so using it as a study guide, those notes. So we're going to start with the C and the O of our Cornell notes. So we are going to create the format. So the creating the format is you can have these printed off, or it's a pretty simple step. All they have to do for students is just create that awkward looking eye. So you have 1/3 of it free here and 2/3 here. The top part is our learning targets. So we're all working on our learning targets. So pick one for the day, and that is written into a question. You can have this additional information if you want, but again, maybe not necessary. Then this is where the students are really going to start using it. So the notes that they're given in class, we want a little bit more room for, and these notes could be on a lecture, video, reading, whatever it may be. But this is where students are going to write, and they'll try, and I would even tell them to try to keep it organized to kind of fit with the lecture, because again, our lectures, our PowerPoints tend to be a little organized, or spacing it so there's room to add. So that would be that creating the format and then organizing the right-hand side. The next part would be that review, revise, note key ideas, exchange ideas. So this is the note making, and you want to try to complete this task within 24 hours of just taking the notes. So the first part is just number the notes for each concept or main idea. So again, our notes are pretty organized that students probably can chunk the information just really easily based on what they saw from the PowerPoint. Then next after that, and before moving on, they could try to pick out the main ideas on their own, and then they could share with a partner and kind of compare and explain why they chose what they did. So that goes back to that exchange ideas. Then the next portion that you would complete would be just key terms, circling those key terms. Again, you could discuss the terms with the class, what they mean. Did we agree on the same terms? And as an educator, you know what is on the test. So going and making sure that each student has that key term recognized. And then there are additional portions that you could have them go further into with their notes. And they're all just listed here. So just additional things that they can do with their notes. So then another part of our note making would be our questioning. And this is a very important aspect. And this is going to go in their notes. The questions are all going to go on that smaller left-hand side. And the importance of this is just basically trying to process the information and have a higher level of thinking. So there's different levels of questions: gathering, processing, and applying. When I was doing this in class, one of my students mentioned that she had remembered something similar to elementary school, so you can actually, or middle school, I forgot what it is, but you can connect with something they previously have heard of, but she said it's right there. There's think and search, and then on my own. And she actually did remember that from back in the day. So each level question, the first one, again, right on the page, right from the notes. The second one, the second level, is maybe where they need to connect some concepts together, two different ideas. And then the last one is basically more information may be needed. It may not be found in their notes. They may need to find more evidence, and it could be a prediction, so they'd have to do some research to see if they were right on with their prediction. There's this other, and all of these handouts can be found in the folders you'll work with today, but then there is an additional worksheet that you could use to kind of help your students pick out how to start their question. Now, this may be something that you need to scaffold with your students. They may not be great at writing questions. They could have a question relating to this presentation. Predict the benefits of writing higher level questions for your notes. And that has predict in it, and that is part of our level 3, but really that could be found in the notes. So they really have to work on having those higher level questions. And another part of the exchanging could be they could share their questions with their partners and explain why they think they are a higher level question. They could start illustrating that this is a tools of study guide, which is the last part of Cornell, by covering up the right-hand side and then going through those questions on the left-hand side. Again, this is just an additional piece of information from the science section. There are additional COSTA level questions in other core areas. Okay, so then the last part of our Cornell notes would be the summary. And again, you want to do this within 24 hours of the notes. And the whole purpose of this is to capture the essentials of the lecture, and it should kind of address that learning target and respond to those questions that they wrote on the left-hand side. This also could be completed after a lecture, or the last slide I'm going to talk about, one of the last slides, is 10-2. So if you limit your lecture, you could do this process during one of those 2 minutes. So the summary, this is actually a guide that you could give to your students to help them develop their summaries. So this is going back to that essential question or learning target. This would also get them to go back to the questions that they asked. And chunking, again, is that organizational piece. So if they have multiple chunks, or they divided up the main ideas into 3 parts, what were some of those questions they asked? And then this would be responding to that. So this is actually a guide that is really helpful to help with the process to get them developing that summary, to make sure that they're targeting the main points of their notes, that essential question and the questions that they developed. Again, you can have this be an exchange activity where you're sharing with the class or a partner, suggesting improvements. So you're really interacting with others and your notes. So the last slide, the 10-2 note-taking structure. This is just to try to limit the time that you present, to try to get students from zoning, basically. So you have your 10 minutes of just information where students are taking down, filling out the right-hand side. And this is where you can break it up. So if you do have more 20 minutes of notes, just break it up a little. Get them talking to each other, I don't know, getting up out of their desks so they're moving around. But you have that processing that information where the 2 minutes, they're kind of listed right here, where they could share their notes, revise, so add, highlight, fill in the gaps, questions, clarify, and start those questions also on the left-hand side. And so during this time, students are not allowed to ask the instructor questions. Students should rely on the support of peers to assist them. So this is, again, trying to get them to exchange information because they may have gotten something from the notes, they may have not. And then the last 2 minutes would be where they silently basically process the information and create the one sentence. So you have your 10 minutes of notes. So this is with the teacher. Here, this 2 minutes is basically with other peers trying to process the information, figure it out, and then here is where they are working as an individual to finally summarize what they got from all of it. And you can repeat this, and it's just a nice way to break up a long lecture. And this last slide here, again, all of this can be found in those folders you'll work with later today, is just a really nice, brief summary of the whole process of the Cornell notes. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you have any questions, please do ask. Thanks. Have a great day.